My daughter-in-law called me fat pig at the wedding. What my son did next will shock you. Martha stood in front of the mirror, her hands shaking as she adjusted her shimmering dress. The event she'd been preparing for, Jake's wedding, had finally arrived, and all she felt was a looming sense of dread. She could hear laughter from the other room, her family and friends celebrating the union. As a devoted mother and grandmother, she had made sacrifices to give Jake a beautiful life. But the reflection staring back at her felt like an imposter. The dress, which had seemed perfect in the store, now felt too tight, even suffocating. She gulped down the rising anxiety, fighting hard against feelings of inadequacy that clawed at her insides. Martha had always been the rock of her family, pouring love into every single cookie baked and flower planted in her cherished garden. But today, questions gnawed at her. What if Rachel was right? What if she really was too big? She couldn't shake the image of her daughter-in-law's smug face as she prepped for the big day, words like sloppy and overweight echoing in Martha's mind like insistent drums. Trying to make herself believe otherwise seemed futile. Standing in a corner of the reception hall, Martha watched Jake laugh with friends, blissfully unaware of her internal tempest. She should have felt joy. She should have basked in the love surrounding her. Instead, she felt a weight pressing her down, spiraling into a pit of self-doubt. The wedding was meant to be a family celebration, yet all Martha could think about was how she'd somehow become an outsider, even within her own bloodline. What seemed like a warm toast suddenly turned frigid when Rachel rose to speak. A sharp smile played on her lips, eyes glinting with calculated mischief. "To my new mother-in-law," she began, a mockery of joy drenching her tone. The laughter that followed Rachel's cruel jab struck Martha like a thunderbolt. I must say, with all this wonderful food, who knew a fat pig could look so glammed up? Horrified gasps coiled around the room, but the laughter persisted, drowning out Martha's racing heart and frozen thoughts. It felt as if the world had collapsed around her, years of devoted mothering erased in an instant. Anguish clawed at her throat as Rachel's words sliced through her, each chuckle from a family member amplifying the vertiginous sense of betrayal. What had she done to deserve this? How could someone twist decades of love into such a vile remark? Before the laughter could fully settle, someone interrupted, a burst of energy and defiance in an otherwise muted ambiance. Jake rose to his full height, cheeks flushed, stepping between his mother and the jagged remnants of Rachel's cruelty. Martha held her breath, disbelief painted over her features. Anger radiated from his stance, confidence rolled off him like warmth. "You will not speak about my mother that way." The noise in the hall faded into a stunned silence. Each moment had tipped into something she hadn't anticipated, revitalizing a flicker of hope within her. But just as quickly, the abyss of uncertainty grew deeper. What else lay beneath this confrontation? As tension thickened, Martha felt the weight of expectation settle back over her shoulders. Could she truly turn this into a moment of healing for her fractured family, or would it only deepen the rifts that had stretched for far too long? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Jake's words hung in the air, Martha's heart raced with conflicting emotions. Could she really navigate this storm? The fallout from Rachel's despicable comment started to congeal into something more than just her own humiliation. Each breath felt heavier, spiraling into the unknown. The pain threatened to splinter the facade of family, leaving her questioning if she could ever reclaim her dignity. Martha stood at a decisive crossroad, a place where forgiveness loomed ahead, tempting yet fraught with uncertainty about who would step back onto solid ground, herself or Rachel. The silence stretched uncomfortably, the air thick with unspoken words and hidden resentments. Martha found herself studying the faces of family and friends. Each one felt the weight of the moment, but reacted differently. Some looked astonished, others amused. A few wore expressions of concern that bordered on pity. But all she saw was a sea of judgment. Their eyes flickered between her and Rachel, weighing the moment with scrutiny. Martha had been the pillar of strength in her family, yet here she stood, the very foundation trembling beneath her feet. Jake's voice broke through her spiraling thoughts. "This isn't how we treat family, Rachel." His words radiated conviction, each syllable a chisel carving away at the years of fear that had accumulated within Martha. For the first time, she felt a sense of pride swell in her chest. He was defending her. But with that pride came a bitter sting of awareness. She needed more than his defense. She needed to reclaim her identity, to build a future that was free from the shadows of ridicule and self-doubt. Rachel's expression morphed into one of disbelief, clearly unprepared for this backlash. As tension crackled in the air, Martha recognized a flicker of opportunity. This was not just a conflict between Jake and Rachel. It was a moment to alter the trajectory of her own life. Martha took a steadying breath, the weight of uncertainty still heavy on her shoulders, but she sensed the gathering storm shifting under her command. "Jake," she finally spoke, her voice measured yet trembling. "Let's not make this about just us. I've been feeling lost for a long time." Everyone turned sharply, the room now dimmed with anticipation. The floodgates opened, and she felt an overwhelming need to voice the thoughts she had silenced for so long. "I've shied away from being seen, thinking it would spare us all from confrontation. I've taken pride in being the supportive mother, the one who always put family first. But where has that left me? I want to be more than a backdrop in my own life." Martha could see eyes widen in surprise. Her words had ignited a fire. Suddenly, the laughter and mockery that had followed Rachel's words felt like a distant memory. As she spoke, she saw the glimmers of recognition in the faces around her. Those who had once judged her now seemed to absorb her honesty. Perhaps they, too, had been waiting for her to break free from the shackles of expectation. "The truth is, I let others dictate how I feel about myself. I convinced myself that changing just a little bit wouldn't matter, but it does. I need to reclaim my worth." Each word grew in strength, and though her voice trembled, it was imbued with resilience. Jake stepped closer, a blend of admiration and concern etched across his features. Rachel's expressions twisted between disdain and confusion. "Martha, I didn't know you felt that way. You've always been there for us. I just thought—" "Thought what?" she pressed, emboldened by Jake's support. "That I would always be okay? That I wouldn't crave respect, love, and a place in my own life?" The atmosphere shifted. The earlier laughter now replaced with an electric silence. Rachel lowered her eyes, the facade of confidence peeling away, leaving vulnerability exposed. But as Martha voiced her truth, a deeper realization settled in. She was not just fighting for respect in a family setting. She was battling against the negative narratives she had tacitly followed throughout her life. What would it mean to move beyond just existing in this family? What would it look like to truly embrace her identity? The uncertainty churned within her, transforming anger into determination. Her heart raced with new ambitions, yet doubt still coiled in the corners of her thoughts. What if reclaiming her worth meant confronting all those who had undervalued her? As tension simmered, Martha recognized another pivotal moment lay ahead. For a fleeting instant, just as she prepared to confront Rachel further, she felt a surge of courage and clarity. No longer would she be defined by others' perceptions. But would Rachel take responsibility for her actions? Or would Martha need to continue navigating her family dynamics alone? The storm swirled, a precipice of personal transformation looming tantalizingly close, filled with possibility, yet fraught with danger. The path forward beckoned, but what lay on the other side could reshape everything she had built her life around. Martha's resolve, buoyed by her declaration, cut through the thick tension in the room. She could sense the unease radiating off Rachel, as if the younger woman was teetering on the edge of a precipice herself. But deep within, a growing urgency pulsed through Martha. This was not merely the assertion of one woman. It was a rallying cry against years of self-neglect. As Rachel's eyes darted around, searching for an escape, Martha felt a smirk tugging at the corners of her mouth. It wasn't about gaining an upper hand. It was about making sure that others recognized her truth. This realization shifted something inside her, unfurling like a long dormant flower. "Rachel," she continued, her voice steady now, "you might not understand the effect of your words or actions. But I want you to hear me. Your disdain doesn't just hurt me. It reflects a deeper inability to value people for who they are instead of what they should be." Silence, pregnant with possibility, enveloped them. Martha stole glances at Jake, whose attentive gaze signaled his unwavering support. The confidence she found in him was a foundation for her own burgeoning self-worth. Would Rachel crumble under the weight of accountability, or would she lash out to protect the fragile image she had curated for herself? The seconds felt like hours, as Rachel, in a surprising twist, finally met Martha's unwavering gaze. "What do you want from me?" Her voice trembled, a stark contrast from the vivacity it held earlier. In that moment, Martha glimpsed not just anger, but fear, a fear that stemmed from vulnerability. "I want you to recognize that everyone carries their own burdens," Martha replied, her tone softer now, but imbued with strength. "We all have insecurities, even if we display them through arrogance. I want you to see me as I am, not just as a mother to your husband, and not just the target of your jokes." Later, as the conversations ebbed and flowed around her, Martha discovered a powerful realization. Every interaction she had, including this one, was a mirror reflecting the parts of herself she had ignored. She was reclaiming fragments of her identity, patching them together, creating a mosaic out of her experiences. With this newfound perspective, the seeds of personal growth planted themselves deeper in her consciousness. Martha found herself drawn to the window, observing the world beyond as if it were a new frontier waiting for her exploration. The gardens she had once tended now seemed parched, yet she felt a surge of commitment to revitalize them, not just physically, but emotionally. It was a commitment not only to herself, but also to the relationships she valued. Change demanded effort, but she sensed the excitement of stepping into the unknown. A question lingered in her mind. What if Rachel labeled her as the difficult mother-in-law? Faced with myriad potential conflicts, Martha decided to transform this insecurity into strength. What if she could model healthy boundaries while still being a loving presence? The power to redefine her role lay within her grasp. As the dinner drew to a close, Martha took a deep breath, looking around the room filled with people who had once felt like a daunting audience, but now appeared as allies in her journey. Perhaps all they needed was to witness her evolution. Just then, Rachel approached her again, her eyes glistening with a hint of remorse. "Martha, can we talk?" The challenge of facing Rachel again ignited both anxiety and anticipation within Martha. How would she respond to the potential fallout of this conversation? With her heart pounding and mind racing, Martha was acutely aware that this was not just about forgiveness. It was about laying the groundwork for a revised relationship and finding common ground. In that juxtaposition of fear and hope, a flicker of inspiration ignited within her. This moment could turn the tide. The time had come to dismantle the old narrative, to rebuild bridges instead of setting fire to them. But could she truly navigate the labyrinth of emotions awaiting her? Would Rachel reciprocate this chance for a new beginning? Or would older wounds surface once more? The challenges beckoned, and the next step loomed before her, bearing the weight of uncertainty and possibility. Martha took a breath, steadying herself as Rachel shifted closer, her expression an array of emotions: regret, anxiety, confusion. It stirred within Martha, reminding her of her own past mistakes and foibles as a mother, a partner, and a friend. This was not the ideal setting for an emotionally charged conversation, but it was the reality she had to face. The resounding hum of the dinner party continued around them, yet their space seemed to shrink to the critical moment unfolding. "Sure, Rachel. I'd like that," Martha responded, her voice projecting a calm, brokering peace, despite the unsettled storm within her. She saw the flicker of uncertainty on Rachel's face as they retreated to a quieter corner of the room, away from prying ears. Martha's heart raced. The stakes felt monumental. She could easily drift into defensive mode, reciting past grievances like a well-rehearsed monologue. But what purpose would that serve? Instead, she needed to engage with empathy. It was an unfamiliar territory for her, but growth seldom resided in comfort. Rachel shifted on her feet, her eyes darting away from Martha's expectant gaze. I've been meaning to apologize for how I treated you tonight," she stumbled, her voice barely above a whisper. "It was rude, and I'm sorry." The admission lingered in the air, both agonizing and inspiring. "Rachel," Martha said softly, weighing her words for maximum impact, "I appreciate your honesty. It takes courage to step forward like this. But I'm also aware that it's not just about one moment. It's a pattern. I want to understand what's driving this." The layers of their relationship began to peel back, revealing deeper understandings of insecurities that had gone unnoticed. Rachel exhaled deeply, as if releasing a burden, yet her body language still screamed tension. "It just feels like there's so much pressure on me to be perfect. My own insecurities. They come out sideways, especially towards you." Martha's heart softened with understanding. Here was an opportunity, a bridge to build rather than a chasm to fall into. "I understand that feeling, more than you know," she said, sincerity woven into her tone. "I've battled with my own expectations, and at times they've clouded the way I've interacted with my own loved ones. It's easy to project onto others when we feel overwhelmed." For a moment, the tension eased, replaced by a contemplative silence, allowing Rachel an opening she had never had before. You're not just my husband's mother. I see you as a person," Rachel said, her defenses melting away. "But it's hard to remember that when I'm so caught up in my own life, trying to prove I belong." Martha felt a pang of compassion. She too had grappled with the need for acceptance, particularly in a world where her worth often felt contingent upon her role. "Belonging shouldn't come with conditions. We each hold value just for being ourselves," she said, hoping to plant a seed of self-acceptance in Rachel's heart. The vulnerability laid bare between them shimmered like a fragile thread in the fabric of their relationship, connecting them through their shared experiences of inadequacy. Martha found herself realizing that the fight for understanding would not be a singular moment, but an ongoing dialogue. As the evening wore on, Martha pondered the possibility of reigniting her own aspirations, long-suppressed dreams and ambitions that she felt she had neglected. Could she inspire Rachel not only to confront her insecurities, but to pursue her passions too? Suddenly aware of her own vitality and desires, Martha made a decision. She would not just be reacting to the dynamics between herself and Rachel. She would actively shape the narrative, not just as a mother-in-law, but as a woman in her own right. But just as this newfound sense of purpose flooded her senses, a nagging voice whispered of the resistance she might face. What if Rachel wasn't ready to embrace this evolution? What if the discomfort of vulnerability pushed her away instead of drawing her closer? The questions hung in the air, heavy with uncertainty, as Martha braced for the next conversation, a potentially life-changing one. Would Rachel seize this moment to evolve alongside her, or would she retreat into her shell yet again? The potential for both conflict and connection loomed large, and Martha could sense that emerging from this encounter would require navigating more than just her own emotions. The stakes were rising, and the time to confront it was drawing near. Martha stood on the precipice of a pivotal moment, her mind racing as she contemplated the path forward. The dinner party's lively background seemed to fade, as her focus intensified on the conversation she was about to have with Rachel. She felt the weight of her desires and fears intertwining. She had begun to taste the possibility of personal growth, not just for Rachel, but for herself as well. Maybe, Martha thought, this isn't just about Rachel's transformation. It's about understanding my own limitations and how they've shaped our relationship. As Rachel looked at her, anticipation fluttered between them like a fragile moth dancing around a flame. "Can we talk over coffee?" Martha proposed, illuminating the gravity of her intentions. The simple act of sharing a beverage could symbolize collaboration, mutual respect, and reconciliation, a way to build upon the fragile thread they had started weaving together earlier. Rachel nodded, her anxiety momentarily dissipating as she led the way to the kitchen. The warmth of the room enveloped them, contrasting the coolness of their earlier encounter. Martha watched as Rachel fidgeted with the coffee machine, and she recognized that every small action spoke volumes. This was an opportunity, a canvas upon which both of them could paint their aspirations. However, uncertainty still loomed in the background. "While we're waiting for that to brew, Rachel, I want to take a moment to talk about something," Martha started, her voice steady but reassuring. "I've noticed that you seem very hard on yourself, striving for perfection. This is something I've wrestled with too." Rachel's shoulders softened slightly. "I think it's just how I've always been. I put this pressure on myself to be the best version." Her honesty was a tremor of vulnerability, a prerequisite for growth. "I get that," Martha replied, aiming for a connection rather than a lecture. "It's hard to separate who we are from what we achieve. But you should know, your value is intrinsic. It doesn't hinge on achieving perfection." As the coffee brewed, a silence enveloped them, one filled with thoughts unspoken but deeply felt. Martha struggled to pen the next sentence in her mind, but it mattered that she continued charting a new course. "Can we take this opportunity to explore our own passions?" she ventured. "For me, it's never been about achieving a particular milestone, but about allowing myself to navigate this journey without judgment. Maybe if we uncover what truly makes us come alive, we can help each other embrace our authentic selves." Rachel hesitated, her brow lined with uncertainty. "And what if we fail? What if we only discover more flaws?" Martha sensed the lurch in Rachel's spirit, a reflection of her own fears darting back at her. "Then we embrace that too. It's our journey together, not a competition. Life is messy." The tension in the air thickened, the gravity of their conversation deepening. Would Rachel have the courage to step forward and take control of her narrative, just as Martha was attempting to do? The prospect of failure lingered heavy, but where there was risk, there was also the possibility of transformation. Martha marveled at how this conversation was beginning to become as much about her as it was about Rachel. As they finally sat at the small kitchen table with their steaming mugs, Martha realized that this was the crucible where her true self could emerge, where she could shed the lingering burden of the past and step into a future filled with purpose. Just as she began to articulate one last thought, her phone buzzed on the table, breaking the moment's intensity. Martha glanced at the screen and felt a deep pang of dread. A message from her son had appeared, one she didn't expect. "Mom, can we talk? Important news." An icy rush swept through her. The urgency in his words struck a chord deep within, stirring up a whirlwind of unresolved questions and emotions. What awaited her on the other end could either shift the dynamics of the relationships she was striving to reshape or unravel them altogether. Martha met Rachel's concerned gaze. The future was uncertain, and it demanded immediate attention. How would she handle her son's revelation, knowing it could change everything she was just beginning to understand? The stakes had just escalated, intertwining their futures in ways they never intended to confront. Martha felt a knot tighten in her stomach as she assessed Rachel's worried expression. The warmth of the coffee mugs suddenly seemed inadequate against the chill of uncertainty that had entered the room. For a moment, the vibrant chatter of the dinner party outside faded entirely, leaving only the rhythmic ticking of the wall clock echoing in the silence. "Can I check the message?" Rachel asked, breaking the stillness. A tinge of curiosity mixed with concern crinkled her brow. Panic rose in Martha's chest. "No, it's personal." She was aware that her response wasn't entirely honest. The truth was, she feared what revelation awaited her if she engaged with the contents of that text. Could it be about another financial issue? Relationship troubles? Deep-rooted family drama she had tried to avoid? "Okay, let's take a moment," Rachel suggested, her hands cradling the warming mug. "We both just stepped into a new territory here, right? Like you said, it's messy." Martha studied Rachel's earnest expression. This was a pivotal moment for both of them, and somehow her son's message felt like an anchor. What if it pulled her back into the depths of her past instead of letting her elevate alongside Rachel? "Rachel, sometimes I worry that I'm caught in cycles that I can't break out of. I've spent too long avoiding the conversations I truly need to have," Martha finally expressed, her voice softer now. "This message from my son, it's a reminder that I can't hide from reality anymore." Rachel nodded solemnly, and Martha could see that she was absorbing every word. The conversation had an organic vitality, opening pathways for both their growth. As they shared this moment of heightened vulnerability, the dynamic in the kitchen shifted subtly. They were no longer just two women confronting personal issues. They were allies in each other's transformative journeys. "What if we turn this confusion into clarity?" Rachel proposed. "What if we both faced what we're really scared of right now? For you, it's the message. For me, it's my fear of being vulnerable." Martha took a deep breath. "I want to face it," she said, her words gaining momentum. "I want to send a message back. But deeper than that, I want to redefine my relationship with my son and with myself. It's time I reveal my fears instead of hiding them." As she spoke, clarity replaced her hesitation. What was so frightening about the unknown? Perhaps it was inevitable change that she feared most, the metamorphosis that would come not just for Rachel, but also for her. "Maybe taking a risk on relationships means opening ourselves to judgment, and that's okay," Rachel added thoughtfully. Martha appreciated the tone of camaraderie that had enveloped them. Leaning into this newfound connection, she felt emboldened. Martha took out her phone, her hands steadying as she clicked on her son's message again, her heart racing. She could strategically construct a response, one that demonstrated both strength and understanding, one that could pivot their relationship toward a place grounded in openness and authenticity. As she typed, a surge of determination coursed through her. "Let's get some things clear about family expectations," she thought as her fingers flew. "I am not just a role. I am a person with fears, goals, and aspirations just as valid as theirs." Suddenly the message transformed from a burden into an opportunity. The butterflies stirred in her stomach, not from dread, but from the excitement that comes with possibility. Rachel's keen observation caught her eye. "What's going on in that head of yours?" Martha looked up. "I think I'm finally ready to confront my past and push forward. There's so much I've been neglecting." The door to transformation had been nudged ajar, revealing a horizon filled with potential for both of them. But as she hit send, a thought nagged at the back of her mind. What if the conversation that followed shattered everything she had begun to rebuild? Just as the tension bubbled, her phone chimed again, this time indicating a new response. Her breath caught in her throat. It was from her son, and the text read, "Mom, please, I need you to sit down for this." Sudden dread thickened the air. Would this be the catalyst that would change everything, or simply force her to confront all the messiness she hoped to avoid? The moment demanded her attention. She was truly not alone in her journey now, and that made all the difference. How deep would this unraveling go? Was she ready to dig into the foundations of her family dynamic and learn what truly lay beneath? Martha stared at her phone, the text swimming in her mind as reality shimmered at its edges. "Mom, please, I need you to sit down for this." Each word echoed in a hollow space, much like a warning bell tolling in her consciousness. She exhaled slowly, grounding herself. This was the moment she had both anticipated and dreaded, a threshold into conversations she had long sidestepped. "Rachel, she began, her voice trembling slightly. The kitchen light flickered, unsettling, momentarily casting shadows that reflected her inner turmoil. "Let's breathe," Rachel encouraged, her tone unwavering. "You are strong, Martha. Whatever it is, you can handle it. This is your moment." Martha didn't just need reassurance. She needed to embrace the shift in her mindset, to redefine her approach to those around her. Every doubt that had once dwelled within her now served only to propel her forward. "You're right," she affirmed, her resolve strengthening as she focused on the deeper meaning of Rachel's words. Inhaling deeply, she allowed the air to fill her lungs until it burned slightly. Then she released it, committing to the process of unwrapping the layers of her past, layers that had scabbed over her relationship with her son. With trembling fingers, she typed, "I'm sitting. What's up?" Her heart raced. What could be so crucial that he required her to pause everything? Nervously, she glanced at Rachel, who stood beside her, an unwavering pillar of support. The seconds dragged on like hours as she awaited a reply. Rachel lifted an eyebrow, gauging the tension thickening the atmosphere, but saying nothing, her presence a silent testament to Martha's courage. Finally, her phone buzzed. "It's about Sarah," he wrote. "We need to talk about her." Martha's stomach twisted again. Every instinct urged her to withdraw, to shroud herself back in the familiar cloak of denial. Yet, confronting this head-on felt imperative now. There was no turning back. "What's going on with Sarah?" she replied, her hands steadying. The more she engaged, the more clarity washed over her. This wasn't merely a moment of confrontation. It was an opportunity for growth amid the uncertain waters of familial obligation and love. "Look, she said some things at the wedding that hurt us both. I think it's time you know what's really happening," he replied steadily. Martha closed her eyes, her mind racing back to the wedding. The laughter, the dancing, the shared joy momentarily overshadowed by unkindness. Had Sarah truly meant those words? She struggled to reconcile that with the woman she thought she knew. "I understand. We must address it," she typed back, her resolve coalescing. No more avoidance. She was ready to tackle the conversations she had previously found too painful or disruptive. "Are you sure? I mean, she can be hurtful. I care about you and don't want you to feel attacked," he warned, a protective instinct threading through his words. But instead of reeling from the weight of his concern, Martha felt the familiar spark of defiance. "It might hurt a bit, but I am beyond avoiding reality simply to keep the peace. We need this. I need to understand. We can't grow without those tough discussions." Determined, she set her phone on the table and stared at Rachel. "I need to do this, not just for me, but for my son. It's time to break our cycles of silence." As she spoke, a sudden surge of empowerment swept through her. It wasn't merely about confronting Sarah. It was about taking ownership of her identity, footing it firmly in her own past while reaching for the future. That step reinforced her instinct to engage more deeply in life. "You're amazing," Rachel whispered, her pride palpable. "Keep this momentum. You're digging into the roots, and that's where the growth begins." Martha nodded in silent agreement. The road ahead loomed like an expansive landscape, stretching out with an invitation for adventure as she prepared herself for what might come. But as the conversation loomed larger, so did the awareness of her son still being entangled in the same familial webs. Was she prepared to bridge the chasms between them? Was she ready to endure whatever reactions lay ahead? Her phone chimed once more with a follow-up message from her son. "We need to meet in person." The air thickened again with tension. Reality was about to unfold, and she could feel the stakes climbing higher. Was she truly equipped to face not only her past, but the potential backlash of taking this leap of faith? The moment of truth was quickly approaching. The air crackled with uncertainty, and she knew it would require everything she had to dismantle those hidden complexities lying just beneath the surface. With a deep breath and fierce determination, she prepared to engage, uncertain yet unmistakably ready for a reckoning that would ultimately reshape her family narrative. What lay ahead in the meeting could either forge the connections she desired or make everything even messier. Either way, she was all in. Martha's heart pounded as she stared at the phone, the words from her son pooling in her mind like dark clouds threatening a storm. We need to meet in person. Face-to-face confrontation loomed on the horizon, and with it, the weight of her unresolved feelings. Right. Let's set it up, she replied, the determination in her voice battling with the fear that gnawed at her. Each tap of her finger felt like a step toward a precipice. When do you want to meet? As the minutes passed without a response, Martha's thoughts spiraled. What would happen when they sat down together? Would she find the courage to confront not only her daughter-in-law's hurtful words, but also the broader implications of silence that had marred her family dynamics? Rachel's presence grounded her, the calmness radiating from her friend, a balm to her frayed nerves. You're ready for this, Martha. Just remember, it's about clarity and not just conflict. Taking a deep breath, Martha nodded, but felt her stomach twist in anxious knots. What if I don't know how to handle it? What if I can't express myself clearly? Then you lean into it. Sometimes, just being present is enough, Rachel advised, her eyes piercing through Martha's uncertainty. The reminder resonated, nudging her toward a broader understanding. It wasn't only about the words she'd exchange, but about challenging the silent patterns of response that had defined her life for so long. The phone chimed again, jolting Martha out of her reverie. How about tomorrow at noon? She took a moment, contemplating the significance of even that simple arrangement. Sounds good. My place? Sure, bring your A-game, he replied with an inviting hint of humor that put a slight smile on Martha's face. She hadn't laughed in a while, and it was a welcome deviation from the heaviness of their conversation. As she set the phone down, Martha felt a surge of exhilaration mixed with anxiety. Tomorrow would not just be about discussing a painful moment. It was a pivotal shift toward vulnerability, a pathway to reclaiming her power in her relationship with her son. In preparation, she decided to jot down her thoughts. Writing had always been her refuge, a way to organize a mind that often ran amok with emotion. With each word she wrote, she felt her apprehension start to ease, clarity unfolding amidst the chaos of feelings she'd harbored. Why would Sarah choose such words? What drove her to publicly demean me and hurt my son? Each question was not an invitation to dwell in bitterness, but rather a prompt to confront the deeper issues: insecurities, past grievances, a legacy of silence that had been passed down through generations. She paused, reflecting on the realization that Sarah's actions had unknowingly created a mirror, forcing her to acknowledge her own vulnerabilities. Had she not buried her challenges under the mask of compliance for too long? Martha took time to evaluate how she had reacted to similar concerns in the past. In her deep excavation, she unearthed moments marked by self-doubt, moments when she chose silence over dialogue, ultimately abandoning her own voice. This is my chance to change, she reaffirmed. With each passing minute, she grew aware of a newfound responsibility, not only to defend herself, but also to share this journey with her son. He needed to witness her evolution as a person, rather than just a protective mother. Night fell, and as she prepared to sleep, the weight of tomorrow settled heavily on her mind. Would her son be receptive to all she had to convey? Could she articulate her feelings in a way that fostered understanding instead of defensiveness? The sheer breadth of possibilities overshadowed any notions of ease she had entertained. One thought overwhelmed her. If she could plant a seed of change tomorrow, perhaps it would bloom into a landscape of healing in their family narrative. Facing Sarah would demand more than just her participation. It required the courage to set the stage for her family to confront and redefine their dynamics. As she drifted into an uneasy sleep filled with swirling thoughts, the question lingered. Would she be able to forge the connections she craved, or would the meeting complicate the very fabric she sought to mend? Determination coursed through her, an unyielding force ready to surface at the first light of dawn. Everything could shift with the right conversation, or spiral into chaos. The outcome rested precariously on the edge of that imminently approaching discussion. Martha awoke to the soft light filtering through her curtains, yet it felt like the dawn heralded a reckoning, not just another day. The air hummed with her anticipation, each breath a reminder of the conversation ahead. She sat up, her mind racing through the potential scenarios that could unfold at noon. Cooking breakfast, Martha found herself moving through the motions, the sizzling of eggs transmuting into an unfamiliar rhythm of resolve. She organized her thoughts methodically, recalling the notes she had crafted last night. It was more than just a list of grievances. It was an articulation of her emotions, her hopes, and fears. As she plated the food, she realized that this act of cooking had dual significance. It was not only an attempt to comfort her son, providing a warm, rational space for dialogue, but also a metaphor for nurturing her own spirit. The food, rich with flavors and simplicity, contradicted the turmoil brewing in her heart. "Today, I choose authenticity over silence," she whispered, stirring her resolve. When her son arrived, Martha greeted him with an embrace that felt as heavy as the world hanging between them. The warmth was real, yet it was laced with unspoken tension. She led him to the dining table, where the aromatic breakfast awaited. "Everything looks great, Mom," he said, taking a seat. "I appreciate you doing this." "Thank you for coming," she replied, her voice steady, but trembling on the inside. As they ate, small talk filled the silence. Each exchange was a barrier breaking down, yet the weight of the conversation loomed like an uninvited guest. With each bite taken, Martha felt her confidence swell. The act of nourishing not just her son's body, but also their relationship, sparked a flicker of courage within her. After breakfast, she wiped her hands on a towel, took a deep breath, and met his gaze. "It's time we talked about Sarah," Martha said, her voice resolute. The room seemed to pulse with the unspoken words they had both been navigating around. His expression darkened slightly, the shift palpable. "I know this isn't easy," he responded, leaning forward. "But it's important." Martha's heart raced, the thrill of vulnerability intertwining with fear. "I want to understand why she reacted that way, but I also need to tell you how hurtful her words were. That day at the wedding wasn't just about a comment. It was a culmination of years of silence that I've lived in." His brow furrowed, and for a moment the air thickened. "Mom, I don't want you to feel like you have to defend yourself. I just want to see us, as a family, move past this." "Moving past it means addressing it first," she countered, her voice steadier. "I need you to see that my silence about such words wasn't acceptance. It was a choice made in fear, a fear of further alienation." He nodded slowly, clearly grappling with this new perspective. "I didn't realize." For the next hour, they both explored not just the incident, but the deeper undertones of their family dynamics. They unpacked long-buried grievances, wounds opened by Sarah's callousness, but stemming from patterns that had repeated for years. The conversation forced Martha to confront her own role while revealing her son's expectations for clarity in their relationship. As they delved deeper, moments of unease emerged, questions about past interactions and missed opportunities. Martha's heart danced between pride in her newfound candor and the raw fear of evolving dynamics. When the discussion flowed into the silence that characterized her previous life, she plunged into uncertainty, wondering if confronting the complex discomfort would finally yield the understanding they both sought. "Can we set boundaries regarding Sarah?" her son asked tentatively, the words hanging in the air like an invitation for change. Martha's pulse quickened as she contemplated the implication of boundaries, both newfound autonomy and a potential fracture in familial ties. Then, the overarching question struck her. What if breaking through this cycle unveiled more truths about herself than she was prepared to accept? The answer lingered on the tip of her tongue, but before she could respond, her phone buzzed, interrupting the moment. A message from Rachel read, "Are you okay?" Martha hesitated, feeling the weight of both her past and potential future straining against the tentative bridge she had just begun to build. Here we go, she thought, preparing to navigate the tumultuous waters of accountability, connection, and self-discovery. Would she accept these boundaries and face the implications of true vulnerability? The possible paths coursed through her mind as she gazed at her son, ready to venture wherever the conversation might lead. Martha took a deep breath, staring into the eyes of her son, realizing that this moment signified not only an opportunity to confront past grievances, but also a transformative shift within her. She understood it was time to discard the layers of self-imposed inadequacy and fully embrace her identity as a powerful, autonomous woman. "Yes," she said, her voice steady. "We can set boundaries with Sarah, but we must also recognize that my value doesn't hinge on her opinions or on any one fleeting comment." It was exhilarating and terrifying to finally declare this truth. The words poured from her with an almost unexpected clarity. Jake nodded, the understanding deepening between mother and son. It was a revelation. For years, they had both navigated complex family dynamics shrouded in silence and uncertainty. Today, Martha found herself not just defending her worth, but actively reclaiming it. She continued, emboldened by the dialogue they were sharing. "I've been allowing my insecurities to cloud my perception of how I fit into our family. I want you to know how essential it is for me to stand firm in my identity, and I hope you can champion that too," she said, allowing vulnerability to color her voice. His features softened, and he appeared to contemplate her words, his expression one of growing pride and validation. "Mom, I always thought you were just being polite, but I see now that you were silently carrying so much more." Martha felt warmth envelop her heart. Vulnerability had somehow harvested understanding between them. It was bittersweet, but she could finally feel the grasp of those hidden chains loosening, fraying slowly under the weight of their growing awareness. Casting aside any lingering fear, she reached an unprecedented milestone when she uniquely addressed her relationship with Sarah. "I think we both need to talk to her together. We need to redefine what our family looks like moving forward," she proposed, feeling the pulse of change coursing through her. With a firm resolution, Martha recognized that this was not merely about confronting one individual. It was about setting a precedent for honesty and openness within their family. "But what if she lashes out again?" "I can't have you hurt again," Jake responded, apprehension creeping back into his tone. "Then we'll address it head on," she replied with newfound conviction. "My voice matters, Jake. It's time I embraced it, instead of burying it under the weight of others' expectations." He sat back, absorbing her words with a mixture of pride and concern. Together, they shared not only their doubts, but also the recognition of a shared obligation to build a healthier familial narrative. As they continued, Martha spoke of her dreams once shelved in the dusty crevices of her mind. "I have passions I've neglected, hopes I've buried under years of self-doubt. It's time to reclaim those parts of me." The realization brought forth an electrifying thrill, and she could see the spark ignite in Jake's eyes. "Do it. Pursue what you love," he affirmed. "I'd love to see you expressing your talents and passions. You deserve to shine." With every exchange, Martha felt her energy surge, the approval wrapping around her like a warming cloak. She'd exchanged her self-doubt for reassurance, and with it came a sense of clarity that she was finally wearing the mantle of her life with authority. By the time they stepped away from the table, a firm plan had materialized. They would meet with Sarah, confronting the excess baggage of negative words while embracing a more honest family structure. In addition, Martha would delve into her neglected passions, something she felt deeply called to nurture. A garden indeed, but this time inside her own heart, not merely in her backyard. Moreover, as she prepared to bid Jake goodbye, she invited him to join her for a painting class the following week. "Let's each find something to spark that joy within us together," she suggested. "After all, growth is richer when it's shared." Several days later, the meeting with Sarah arrived, and Martha stood in front of the mirror, the reflection now radiating an assurance she hadn't known she possessed. The weight of Rachel's cruel words had transformed. They no longer defined her. Instead, they had fueled her transformation into a woman ready to embrace every nuance of her existence. Martha walked into the meeting equipped not just with words, but with love and resilience. She and Jake would explore both their family's pain and the path to healing, but this wouldn't be a futile exercise. It would be a step toward liberating themselves. Together they would pave new roads that would honor their individualities while solidifying their connection. The air was thick with anticipation as they approached Sarah. Martha realized that it was more than just a confrontation. It was the genesis of an evolving narrative, one colored by respect and love, not fear. No longer burdened by the shackles of another's ridicule, she was free to create a future narrative filled with compassion, dignity, and healthy boundaries. This newfound confidence blossomed within her, the echo of reclaimed worth resounding in her heart. Wherever the conversation with Sarah would lead them, Martha reveled in the authenticity she had found. As she prepared to embark on this next chapter, a surge of excitement coursed through her. Martha had finally achieved what felt like a long-awaited dream. She had transformed her narrative, and with it emerged as a version of herself hitherto unimagined. Joy filled her spirit as the figure in the mirror smiled back, a testament to her journey of overcoming. It was more than a conversation. It represented the reclamation of her identity, a promise to herself to nurture the passions and relationships that mattered most. Before long, she not only felt empowered but recognized as a solid foundation in her family, a role anchored by love, connection, and the profound understanding of her self-worth. Now, it was no longer just about moving past pain. It was about ushering in joy, living fully, and manifesting the future she had always envisioned. And as Jake stepped forward with her, with shared smiles and expectations about to collide in a whirlwind of emotions, Martha knew that they would navigate this journey together. She finally believed in the power of her voice, and it was a moment she had long awaited. Congratulations, Martha, you have arrived. Now, to everyone reading this experience, if you have found inspiration in Martha's story, it's time to take action. Subscribe immediately to ensure you don't miss the next exclusive emotional narratives that can lift your spirit. Leave a like right now to show your support and feed the algorithm, because your voice truly matters in this community. Comment your thoughts and reactions below. Your perspective is priceless. Share this video without delay to spread this journey of transformation to at least 5 friends who need empowerment in their lives. Don't wait even one more second to show your commitment to these stories of personal growth and healing. Together, let's uplift each other through acknowledgement and understanding.